There's a hidden power some women carry, so quiet yet so undeniable, that the moment they enter a room, the energy shifts. You can't quite explain it. They don't shout. They don't beg for attention. But you feel them. What is this unseen force? Why does it make some women unforgettable while others struggle to be noticed? The answer lies in something most people misunderstand. And once you know it, you'll never see self-worth the same way again. Too often people confuse value with being loud, demanding, or difficult. But the truth is the complete opposite. A woman of value does not need to raise her voice or manipulate anyone to be respected. Her value radiates in silence, through her choices, her energy, and her calm presence. And here comes the mystery that changes everything, the difference between a demand and a standard. A demand says, do this or else. It is fueled by fear and control, but a standard says, this is who I am, this is what I accept. If it doesn't fit, I walk away. That single shift is the dividing line between exhaustion and empowerment, and if you lean in, you'll feel the difference instantly. Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. This isn't just a quote, it's the very essence of a woman of value. She does not adapt her truth to please others. She does not shrink herself to be chosen. She lives in alignment with her worth, and that authenticity gives her voice a quiet authority. Picture this. She meets someone who at first shows interest, calls, plans, attention. But then his energy fades. A woman without standards panics, chases, doubts herself. But a woman of value? She simply says, I notice your energy has shifted. That's fine, but I don't play guessing games. I value honesty. No drama, no begging, just clarity. This is not arrogance. It's not being too much. It is grace shaped by self-respect. Real men admire it. Boys feel threatened by it. And here's the curious part. Why does such calm confidence carry more power than shouting, chasing, or demanding? The deeper we go, the more you'll see the secret behind this invisible strength. But before we continue, make sure you subscribe to my channel SYC Soul, hit like, press the notification bell so you don't miss upcoming videos, and share this with someone who needs it. Because trust me, what you'll discover in the next parts will surprise you. So what truly happens when a woman chooses standards over demands? The answer is transformation, not just in how others treat her, but in how she feels inside. You see, when she no longer begs for attention or lowers herself to keep someone, her energy begins to speak louder than her words ever could. People feel it without even knowing why. Carl Jung once observed, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. That awakening is exactly what separates women who constantly chase validation from those who radiate calm confidence. One is exhausted, waiting for approval. The other is already whole, unshakable, grounded. Do you know what's fascinating? This awakening changes everything about her presence. The way she talks, the way she walks, even the way she makes decisions. Without saying much, her energy announces, I will not settle. I will not shrink. I know my worth. And everyone around her feels it immediately. Think about it. You've probably seen women like this. They enter a room quietly, yet people notice. They don't need to raise their voice because their silence is already powerful. They don't need to beg for love because their self-respect attracts genuine love. And here's the curious twist. Men react differently. Boys feel intimidated by this energy, but real men feel inspired by it. Why? Because authenticity commands respect. Imagine this scenario. A man shows interest at first, calls often, makes plans, shows effort, but then suddenly, his energy shifts. He grows vague, distant, inconsistent. An insecure woman might panic, chase, or compromise her boundaries. But the woman of value does something remarkable. She names the truth without fear. I sense a change. If you're losing interest, that's fine. I value honesty more than games. Do you see how different that feels? She doesn't attack him. She doesn't beg. She doesn't collapse. Instead, she sets a boundary with grace. And here's where it gets even more powerful. She is not trying to change him. She's simply stating her truth. If he cannot meet it, she lets go without bitterness. That is the strength of standards. And this strength isn't just about relationships. It's about life. It's about learning to choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, self-respect over desperation. And in the next part, we'll dive deeper into how this self-respect shapes not only her choices, but also the very men she attracts. Now here's where things get truly fascinating. When a woman awakens to her worth, she doesn't just change how she responds to others. She changes what she attracts in the first place. This is where the shift becomes undeniable. Her energy begins to filter out chaos, leaving only alignment. And suddenly, the same patterns that used to repeat, the heartbreaks, the disappointments, the endless cycles, start to dissolve. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Think about that. How many women believe they are just unlucky in love? They meet the same kind of man, face the same kind of pain, and think, "This is my fate." But in truth, it's not fate. It's a pattern. And patterns break only when you awaken to your own standards. Here's the rehook. Without standards, life feels like a storm you can't control. With standards, the storm passes and clarity remains. And this clarity changes everything. Imagine two paths. On the first, a woman ignores her worth. She accepts ghosting, disrespect, vague excuses. She compromises endlessly until she barely recognizes herself. On the second path, the woman of value chooses differently. She communicates directly. She doesn't scream or attack, but she doesn't stay silent either. She says, "This is important to me. This is what I expect. If it doesn't align, that's okay, but I won't shrink myself for anyone." That single decision reshapes her entire life. Because now, she isn't waiting to be chosen. She is doing the choosing. She isn't searching for someone to complete her. She already feels complete. She isn't begging for love. She is love. And here is where it gets mysterious. People around her sense this difference even if they don't understand it logically. Men who are serious, grounded, and mature respect it. They lean in. Men who thrive on games, inconsistency, or manipulation withdraw quickly because they know they cannot sustain her standard. Do you see how powerful that is? Her energy does the sorting for her. This awakening is not a shield of arrogance, it's a mirror of self-respect. And in the next part, you'll see how this mirror not only filters out what doesn't belong, but also inspires the right kind of love to grow stronger than she ever imagined. Here's the deeper mystery most people never realize. When a woman raises her standards, she doesn't push people away. She actually reveals who truly belongs in her life. This is the paradox of value. The higher she rises, the clearer everything becomes. Those who are aligned step closer, and those who are not quietly fade away. And this is not rejection, it is protection. Carl Jung's work often explored the hidden forces of the psyche. He believed that what we repress, ignore, or deny in ourselves eventually shapes our reality. So if a woman ignores her worth, she unconsciously attracts situations that confirm that belief. But when she honors her worth, she begins to attract situations that mirror her strength. It's as though the outer world rearranges itself to match her inner truth. Curious, isn't it? Think about it. A woman who fears abandonment often attracts partners who leave. A woman who doubts her beauty often attracts partners who criticize. But a woman who knows her value? She attracts partners who respect her because she no longer tolerates anything less. Her standard silently filters out what her words could never fully explain. Here's a powerful rehook. This isn't about control, it's about alignment. You cannot force someone to treat you with respect, but you can decide what you allow, what you accept, and what you walk away from. And that decision is where your true power lives. Picture it like this. Imagine a woman standing at a crossroads. One path is filled with noise, drama, games, and endless confusion. The other path is calm, clear, and steady. Which path she walks depends entirely on her standards. Without them, she drifts toward chaos. With them, she chooses peace. And that choice shapes every future relationship she has. And here's something even more striking. Men can sense this difference instantly. They may not have the words for it, but they feel it. A man who is serious feels drawn to her clarity because it creates safety. A man who only wants to play games withdraws because her boundaries reveal his weakness. Without lifting a finger, she separates the real from the false. In the next part, we'll explore how this quiet strength doesn't just change her relationships. It transforms her very sense of identity, making her almost magnetic to the right people and unshakable in the face of challenges. Up to now, we've seen how standards separate the genuine from the false and how they silently filter relationships. But here is where the story goes even deeper. Standards don't just change how others see her. They transform how she sees herself. And once that shift happens, something extraordinary unfolds. Carl Jung often spoke about the self as the center of our personality, the truest version of who we are beneath masks, fears, and expectations. Most people, he believed, live only as fragments of themselves, chasing approval and hiding their truth. But when a woman of value claims her standards, she steps closer to her true self. She stops fragmenting. She stops pretending. She becomes whole. And here's the fascinating part. Wholeness is magnetic. People can sense it even if they don't understand why. A woman who is whole carries an aura of calm power. She doesn't need to dominate. She doesn't need to manipulate. She simply is. And that state of being draws respect, admiration, and even love in ways that force cannot. Now let me give you a rehook that may surprise you. When a woman honors her standards, challenges don't disappear, but her response to them changes. Instead of breaking under pressure, she bends with grace. Instead of fearing rejection, she sees it as redirection. Instead of chasing what slips away, she trusts what is meant for her will remain. And that trust becomes her strength. Think of it this way. Her energy becomes a mirror. Those who approach her either rise to meet her standard or reveal themselves unworthy of it. Either way, she wins. Because she is no longer afraid of being alone, she is afraid only of losing herself. And now, pause for a moment. Imagine if every woman lived with this kind of clarity. How different would relationships look? How different would families be? How much unnecessary pain could be avoided? This is not theory, it is transformation, waiting for anyone willing to claim it. Before we move forward, make sure you subscribe to my channel SYC Soul, press the like button, hit the notification bell so you never miss upcoming videos, and share this with someone who needs it. Because what we uncover next will reveal the deeper spiritual dimension of value, something even more powerful than respect. Here's where the mystery unfolds even further. Value is not only psychological, it is spiritual. When a woman of value lives by her standards, she does more than protect herself from harm. She aligns with something far greater than herself. And once that alignment happens, her life begins to carry a sense of flow, as though unseen forces move in her favor. Carl Jung spoke often about the collective unconscious, a hidden layer of the human mind where symbols, instincts, and archetypes live. This collective unconscious shapes how we see others and how they see us. A woman who embodies her value unconsciously steps into an archetype, a timeless role that people immediately recognize. Without saying a word, she radiates dignity, grace, and authority. Curious, isn't it? This is why some women walk into a room and silence follows. It's not beauty alone. It's not money, status, or charm. It's the ancient archetype of the queen, the healer, the wise woman, alive within her presence. And here's the rehook. Once you realize this, you can never unsee it. You start noticing who carries this energy and who is only pretending. But here's the catch. Living in alignment with this power requires discipline. It's easy to say you have standards. It's harder to live by them consistently. A woman of value does not just talk about respect. She lives it in her choices, her relationships, and even the way she speaks to herself. And that self-consistency builds the foundation of her strength. Imagine, for a moment, two women. One knows her worth in theory, but compromises at the first sign of loneliness. The other feels the same loneliness, but chooses patience over desperation. Which woman do you think creates lasting peace in her life? Which one becomes magnetic to real love? The answer is clear. The one who refuses to betray herself even when it's difficult. And here's the real mystery. Life itself, seems to honor this choice. Opportunities appear, the right people enter, the wrong people exit. It's as though the universe rearranges itself to support the woman who refuses to abandon her soul. In the next part, we'll uncover how this inner alignment not only changes relationships but also builds resilience, turning challenges into fuel and making her unshakable in the face of trials. Here is the next hidden truth. Resilience is not built by avoiding challenges, it is built by facing them with clarity. And this is exactly what sets a woman of value apart. She does not escape storms, but she does not let storms define her either. Instead, she turns trials into lessons, heartbreak into wisdom, and rejection into redirection. Carl Jung believed that suffering was not meaningless. He said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Think about that. Pain, when faced with awareness, does not destroy us. It awakens us. And that is the secret a woman of value learns. Instead of running from discomfort, she uses it to grow. Here's a rehook that may surprise you. When others see challenges as curses, she sees them as mirrors. Each disappointment reveals where she needs to strengthen her standards. Each betrayal shows her where she ignored her intuition. Each ending becomes the beginning of greater clarity. And this perspective transforms her into someone unshakable. Picture this. Two women face rejection. The first collapses, her self-worth crumbles, and she begs for answers. The second feels the same pain but pauses, breathes, and reflects. She asks herself, "What is this teaching me? Where did I ignore my inner voice? What must I refine?" The first loses herself in grief. The second finds herself in growth. Which path do you think leads to lasting strength? This is the essence of resilience. Not pretending to be invincible, but learning to rise after every fall with deeper wisdom. And the mystery is, people can sense this resilience. They feel it in the way she speaks, in the calm of her eyes, in the steadiness of her decisions. This kind of strength doesn't need to be announced, it radiates. And here's something even more fascinating. Resilience makes her magnetic, not because life is suddenly easy, but because people are drawn to those who cannot be easily broken. A woman who knows her worth and grows from her wounds becomes rare, and rarity, as you know, always commands respect. In the next part, we'll explore how this rare combination of standards and resilience creates something even more powerful, an inner freedom that no one can take away, no matter the circumstance. Now comes perhaps the most mysterious transformation of all. When a woman of value builds resilience, she unlocks something even greater, inner freedom. This freedom is not about escaping responsibilities or living without relationships. It is about no longer being chained to fear, desperation, or approval. And once this freedom is claimed, she becomes untouchable in the deepest sense. Carl Jung often spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole and authentic. This, he believed, was the ultimate goal of the human journey. And a woman of value walks this path every time she chooses her standards over her fears. She is no longer enslaved by the need to be liked, wanted, or chosen. Instead, she lives from a place of self-trust. And here's the rehook. People can feel this freedom even if they can't explain it. Think about it. Most people are trapped in invisible cages. They stay in relationships because they fear loneliness. They hide their truth because they fear rejection. They shrink themselves because they fear judgment. But the woman of value does something rare. She chooses honesty over comfort, truth over approval, freedom over chains. This choice changes everything. Imagine someone trying to manipulate her with silence, inconsistency, or games. Instead of falling into confusion, she sees clearly, "This is not alignment. I won't play this game." And in that moment, she steps out of the cage others remain trapped in. That is true freedom. Here's the fascinating part. This freedom is magnetic. People feel drawn to those who cannot be controlled by fear. Some admire it, others feel threatened by it, but either way they cannot ignore it. It creates an invisible gravity around her, a presence that whispers, "I know who I am, I choose my path." And this is the paradox. The more free she becomes, the more she attracts relationships that are healthy, respectful, and genuine. Because she no longer chases love from a place of emptiness. She invites it from a place of wholeness. And wholeness always recognizes wholeness. In the next part, we'll uncover how this inner freedom transforms not only her relationships but her entire destiny, drawing opportunities, connections, and respect in ways that almost feel mystical. Here's where the journey takes on an almost mystical quality. When a woman of value embodies inner freedom, her entire destiny begins to shift. It's as though the invisible threads of life respond to her energy, weaving opportunities, connections, and relationships that align with her worth. Some might call it coincidence, others call it fate. But Carl Jung had another word for it: synchronicity. Synchronicity, as Jung described it, is the meaningful connection between inner states and outer events. When you align with your truth, the outer world begins to mirror that alignment. And this is exactly what happens with a woman of value. Because she refuses to betray herself, life itself refuses to betray her. Isn't that a powerful thought? Think about it. She chooses honesty, and suddenly honest people appear. She sets boundaries, and suddenly situations that once drained her energy no longer enter her life. She raises her standards, and suddenly those who meet them remain, while those who don't fade into the distance. This is not luck, it is alignment. Here's a rehook. Once you see this pattern, you cannot unsee it. Life is not random. It reflects what you tolerate, what you expect, and most of all, what you believe about yourself. A woman who doubts her worth attracts chaos to confirm that doubt. A woman who knows her worth attracts respect to confirm her truth. This is why a woman of value feels almost magnetic. People may not understand why they are drawn to her, but they feel it. Some admire her strength, some envy it, some even test it, but no one can ignore it. Her presence demands recognition, even in silence. And here's the most striking part. This magnetism isn't only about relationships, it spills into every area of her life. Her career, her friendships, her family, even her creative expression. She begins to live as though guided, as if each step opens the door to the next. And in truth it does, because she has aligned with herself, and alignment always attracts alignment. In the final part, we'll bring everything together, showing how a woman of value not only transforms her own life but becomes an example, a light and a force of change for everyone who crosses her path. So now we return to the question we began with. What is that hidden power some women carry, the one that makes their presence felt without a single word? After this journey, the answer should be clear. It is not charm, beauty, or luck. It is value. It is the decision to honor standards over demands, truth over fear, growth over comfort. Carl Jung reminded us that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And this is what a woman of value does. She accepts her truth without apology. She stops fighting for approval and instead lives in alignment with her authentic self. That alignment becomes her aura, her magnetism, her invisible strength. And here's the final rehook. This journey is not about perfection. It is about choice. Each time she chooses honesty over manipulation, patience over desperation, resilience over collapse, she strengthens her value. And with each choice, her life shifts. Relationships evolve, opportunities appear, her very destiny transforms. Think of it this way, she becomes like a lighthouse. She does not chase ships in the night. She stands firm, shining with clarity, and those meant for her, whether lovers, friends, or opportunities, find their way to her light. Those not meant for her drift away into the dark. Either way, she remains steady. That is her power. And perhaps the most beautiful part? A woman of value doesn't just change herself, she becomes an example for others. Her daughters, her sisters, her friends, even strangers who watch her from a distance, learn from her strength. She becomes proof that dignity is possible, that respect is non-negotiable, and that love built on truth is worth waiting for. So, as we close this journey, ask yourself, what would your life look like if you lived every day with this clarity, this resilience, this freedom? The answer is not something you must imagine. It is something you can begin today with one choice, one boundary, one act of courage. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to my channel SYC Soul. Press like, Hit the notification bell so you never miss the upcoming videos, and share this with someone who needs it. Because this journey doesn't end here. It is only the beginning of discovering your true value.